Step 1. Decide that you want to go to the Basque Country. Step 2. Realize that in order for your loved one to join you, you have to be married. So, time skip to a year later. Get married. Then start doing a whole bunch of paperwork in order to get to Spain. Oh, hey everybody, welcome to Nga. This is very much not a normal video of Nga, because if you haven't noticed from my past several videos, a couple live streams, etc., I am not in Arizona, though I am such a notorious Sonoran desert fiend. No. As you can see from this ocean that is behind me, any thoughts, ocean? If that wasn't silent, I'm gonna be really annoyed because this is supposed to cancel out ambient noise and stuff. That right there, that is the Cantabrian Sea, the Bay of Biscay, as some may call it. That is the Atlantic Ocean. I am in the Basque Country, currently a little bit outside of Bilbao, or Bilbao, as they call it in Euskara, the Basque language. Yes. And it took a whole lot of effort for me to get out here. A lot of paperwork, several journeys to Los Angeles to get various visa paperwork things figured out, and a whole bunch of packing, a whole bunch of logistics, and an extreme amount of stress in order for me to get here. Now, I have been here for several months. Got here in October. It is currently the beginning of February, and so I figured that I would do a little video explaining, number one, how I got here, and number two, how things have generally been going since I got here. It's not going to be extremely in-depth as to the actual paperwork logistics itself, because it was extremely annoying, and even thinking about that makes me mad. But I guess if people are genuinely interested in that, maybe I'll talk about it on my second channel of the Velar Nasal sometime. I don't know, maybe not. Let's just talk about the broad strokes here of the horrific things I had to do to get here. You're probably wondering how I got myself into this situation. It all starts back in, let's say, the spring of 2020. I was applying for the Fulbright scholarship to teach English in Andorra for a year. I was doing all the interview processes, setting up the project that I was going to do. I was going to set up like a music club and stuff at the school in Andorra that I was going to be teaching at. I did all these interviews in suits. All the while I was preparing for my honors thesis defense, my original version of the book that eventually became the Auto-June grammar book, as you may have seen if you were an early subscriber of this channel. That was all happening at the same time as this, and then the world shut down. COVID happened. I did my honors thesis defense online. It was one of the big moments where I decided to continue doing the YouTube channel, continue doing my one video every week for over a year, which there's no way I would be able to get close to that right now because of the quality creep that I've enforced upon myself. Eventually I found out that I was an alternate, which means there were 6 spots in Andorra, and I was number 7 or something like that. Like, I was the very next person before the 6 people who were able to go. But then when COVID happened, Andorra totally shut itself down, and then they basically told all of the 2020 winners and the 2020 alternate, myself, that they would be postponing all of them. And that greatly increased my chances of being able to go in 2021, because what are the odds that all 6 of those people would have kept their positions, not dropped out by the time an entire year had passed, especially after such a chaotic year. And then in 2021, I was like, okay, time to hear if the 2020 Andorra people are going to be going, and if I've been upgraded to the spot that goes to Andorra. And then what do you know, Andorra postpones it another year. They say, sorry, 2020 people and 2021 people, nobody's coming to Andorra this year. And so then it was 2 years after the original time that I could have hypothetically been selected as that alternate to go to Andorra to teach in Andorra for a year. And then the 2022 deadline for Fulbright, it just is included in the announcement, oh yeah, 2020 and 2021 people, sorry, but we're moving on. Screw you guys. guess I'm not going to Andorra now. In the meanwhile, during the intervening 2 years, I kind of realized that I was very much more interested in going to the Basque Country instead. Partially, I mean, I guess it began because during my linguistics degree, we talked a lot about the Basque language, and how it has like some various rare features, just some elements of it that aren't common in other languages. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I now know a lot about Basque and about the Basque Country. It would be cool to go there too, I guess. But Andorra was originally still my like priority in my head, but I was like losing hope over the course of those 2 years and that happening. And then when it didn't happen, and I was already in a relationship with my now wife Enya Shui, and we were talking, and she was like, hey, what if we went to Spain? And I was like, I mean, the Fulbright thing isn't happening, but there are other companies, and I've got the ESL certificate, because I did an ESL certificate at ASU, like the teaching English to speakers of other languages, and I was like, so I guess I have the qualifications to go and do that, so sure. And I was like, okay, cool, I will get into contact with a couple of these companies that claim to take people to Spain and hook them up with like a public school to teach as an auxiliar de conversación. I signed up with a few of them. Many of them didn't work out at all. And then I ended up selecting one of them. I'm not going to talk about that particular company in specific because I'm not like sponsored by them or anything, nor would I really want to be, because I'm not exactly satisfied with the services that they provided, or lack thereof, for the amount of money that I gave them to assist me in this, when I really could have just done NALCAP all along. NALCAP. Probably should have just done that, because I ended up doing pretty much the same amount of work, but also spent like $900 more than I actually needed to. So, oopsies. Yeah, so anyway, we started doing various items of paperwork, but we quickly found out that in order for both me and her to go, we would need to be married. And we were already planning on getting married, but we were not married yet, nor would we have been married by the time of the deadline to go in the fall of 2023. So we were like, oh, okay, we'll do that next year. And then next year came, and then we got married. And then suddenly it was like, oh shit, we can actually go to Basque Country. We could actually make the whole thing happen. It had already began before we got married. Like by the beginning of 2024, we were already doing like paperwork and stuff for this, by the way. But by the time we actually got married, and thus were legally qualified to finish all that paperwork and get visas and get out here, it was an insane, mad rush of doing all kinds of insanely annoying bureaucratic nonsense, both on the American side and the European Union side, in order to get me out here with Enya Shui. And god damn, it was annoying. Like, holy shit, it was extremely annoying. There's only like 10 consulates to Spain in the entire United States, and one of them is not in Phoenix. One of them is in Los Angeles, and that's like an 8-hour drive. And so we did that three separate times, which, I mean, like, an 8-hour drive is bad, but also there were people who had to go all the way from Colorado, because like Colorado was still in the Los Angeles district, so people were either literally booking planes to go all the way down to Los Angeles from Colorado, or driving the like 20 hours that it takes to get from various parts of Colorado down there. So I felt really bad for them. Meanwhile, like, the state of California had two, like, it had one in Los Angeles and one in San Francisco, and you had to use the one that was in your geographic region. Like, I was considering, like, oh, maybe I'll go visit my family members in New Jersey, and then I'll go to like the one in New York City while I'm in New Jersey. But no, you have to go to the consulate that's within your like region, your designated consulate region. People who have moved to other countries, this is probably all like extremely obvious. This was not extremly obvious to me. I'd never been outside of the United States at all before this, by the way. Like, okay, I guess I went to Campobello Island during our wedding. Like, it was not for the wedding, but a couple days after the wedding, I did technically cross over into Canada to go to Campobello Island, island, but most of that island is an international park that's jointly administered by the United States and Canada. It's just one tiny little island out of the enormous country that is Canada, so I don't know if it even really counts. Point is, this was my first time like actually like having to go a far distance away from the United States, so it was incredibly stressful. I had a document full of every item of paperwork, every little bit of minutia and detail that I needed to have hammered out, and finally, after talking with like Spanish lawyers and having meetings with this company that were very much unhelpful. Essentially, since I was the one who was going to be the auxiliar de conversación and Yeshua wasn't, the company that we were working with essentially just denied that she existed, you know? Like, I figured they would have at least supplied like a minimal amount of assistance to someone who's coming with like a spouse or like a family member. They said that they had a whole section on helping like the spouse of the teacher or the children of the teacher get all their paperwork figured out, but every time I would talk to them, they would just be like, well, actually, since she's not the one who signed the paper, in our eyes, she does not exist, so if you want any help for her, you're going to have to contact this lawyer. And so all of the work that the main company claimed to be saving me time with was not actually saving me time, because both Enyushwe and I did end up having to actually do all of the work anyway to figure out all of the various details to make sure that she would be able to legally come. Eventually, we had the majority of the situation figured out. We were extremely paranoid because they kept on telling us, like both the lawyer and the company were both telling me that like if even one like little smidgen of detail about the paperwork was incorrect, that we would just be rejected, and then it would mess up the entire like schedule, the entire order of operations to get out here, and then we just wouldn't be able to go at all because the schedule would be messed up so far, which they later backtracked on, but they acted like it was an immutable reality the entire time whenever we were trying to figure out the process. So that's a whole nother thing. This is all technically still part of step 3, by the way. Yeah, let's call it like step 3D. Step 3 subsection D, go to that consulate in Los Angeles with all of the paperwork, right? The passport, all these apostilled documents. Have you ever heard of the apostille of The Hague? Because I hadn't before this. Not only did every document have to be translated by like a certified translator into Spanish, every single one of them, but we also had to get an FBI background check, like get your fingerprints in. Like that makes sense, right? Even though I already had a fingerprint done from a time that I was a teacher years ago, right? So I already had my freaking fingerprint clearance card that wasn't expired, but I had to do it again anyway. But Yeshua had to do it too, so we just both did it. And we got all that in, and we had to send it to the Department of State to get the apostille of The Hague. And the apostille of The Hague is like this document that certifies, like with the entire United Nations, that the FBI background check done by the Department of State is indeed legit and applicable across international boundaries. So we had to wait like 6 weeks to get our apostilled FBI fingerprint background checks done, get them legally translated by a certified Spanish translator, and then, and only then, and after a whole bunch of other things, and setting up a meeting on an extremely complicated and incomprehensible website for the Spanish consulate in Los Angeles, we drove to the Spanish consulate in Los Angeles, and we handed in a bunch of paperwork, and then we were told to come back later, and so we did, doing more paperwork. Now we were trying to start figuring out the logistics of where we're actually going, things like that, because at some point after that first trip to the consulate, when it was entirely possible that we could have had one mistake, the most common mistake that they cited being putting the date on a document in like the American date format instead of the like international date format for like the European Union, which, like, you may think, oh, that's something a mistake you could avoid easily, right? Except there was a lot of dates that you had to put in. Like, there were so many times where we had to put in dates, we had to make sure that they matched, that, like, it could have easily slipped under our radar, despite the, like, triple and quadruple checking that we were doing, that it could have ended up just, one of those dates could have been off, and then we could have been screwed. Or my middle name sometimes, because, like, naming conventions are different in the US than they are in Spain, and there's a couple people that, completely to no fault of their own, got their applications completely rejected because the people filling out the paperwork on the Spain side of things didn't know how to parse the concept of, like, a middle name in an Anglosphere, like, naming convention context. And that actually happened to two of the people in the group chat for the support group. They still ended up eventually being able to come, but it set them back by, like, over a month. And then I got my placement, right? I was told that I was coming to this school in a town outside of Bilbao, and I was like, oh, cool, this is a nice looking place. But then they had promised they were going to provide assistance in finding housing, like affordable housing out there. And I was like, okay, so can I get that list? And they're like, oh yeah, we're working on it. It's a very time-consuming thing. And in the meantime, I started looking at listings on this website called Idealista myself. Soon enough, and by soon enough, I mean like another month later, they finally got back to me, and it was all like grandiose, like, here's your list of potential housing. Oh, yes, it was such a hard thing that we did. And it was literally just like the top 5 search results from idealista.com. It even was like just the links from Idealista and nothing else. Oh, my well-spent money, gets turned into a thing that I was able to glean from just going on the internet for about 2 minutes myself. Oh, thanks so much. Thank you so much for that. Love that. Then we get the notification that we are able to go and pick up our visa and other documents and things. So it's time to go back to the consulate. So we go back to the consulate, drive, we do the whole thing in a single day, like literally in a single day. We wake up at like 2 a.m, drive all the way out to Los Angeles, and then we go into the visa office. We don't know whether we've been approved or not, by the way. I don't know why, but they make a point, like, all they tell you is that, oh, you can come pick up your document. They probably don't want any, like, any complicating phone calls to fill up their phone line or something, so I guess it makes sense. But goddamn, it was stressful. Holy shit, it was extremely nerve-wracking in a way that I have not felt nerve-wracked at any point before in my goddamn life, except I guess when my house almost burned down during one of those fires in 2020. My nerves were extremely racked then. Anyway, if my voice sounds a little weird, it's because I have a cold. Got some nice sinus action going on right now. So if it sounds like my nasal passages aren't being properly utilized, then boom, you got that Pratt auditory recognition brain. Good job. Anyway, so then we're waiting in this office and we're watching people get rejected in front of us. This office is a combination of the Spain consulate and the Germany consulate. German line is working way faster than ours, but it's mostly because it's just a line of people getting rejected. Like the lady at the desk for the Germany section was just like, she would like look at people's paperwork and stuff for 1 second, and then she'd just be like, rejected. And then they'd be like, wait, what do you mean rejected? She's like, sorry, you're wasting my time. Please let the next person go. You've been rejected. You can set up another appointment for next month. And we're just sitting there like, oh God, what's about to happen to us when we get onto the Spain side? The Spain side was much more relaxed, traveling much more slowly. We were sitting out in this joint waiting room, just watching, just all these people applying for the German visas, just getting absolutely obliterated. It was terrible. And then finally we get called in, and we go in and we talk to the lady at the Spanish consulate desk, and then she pulls out our documents and stuff, and she's like, wow, I don't think I've ever seen a more perfect and organized set of documents. Like, oh, thank God. I'm like, does that mean that we're approved? And she's like, yeah, you're approved. And then and she pulls out our passports with like the visas labeled on them. And we had been told that it was supposed to be like a 270 day thing or something like that, 180, 270, something like that, and then it says 90 on there. We're like, 90? Why does it say 90? And she's like, oh, they all say 90. You just have to go and get your Spain identification card within those first 90 days, or else the 180 days or 270 days or whatever doesn't actually apply. That was like pretty much complete news to us. We thought we were just going to get that visa with the proper amount of days that we were allowed to, be visaed in Spain on it, and then we'd just be able to walk along our merry way. But nope, there was a whole nother layer of Spanish bureaucracy that we were going to have to deal with once we got there, and we couldn't do it until we got there and had a valid address to use. So we got approved, right? We got approved. But there was a whole nother layer of stress lying ahead for us in the horizon, and we were not looking forward to that. And I was just like utterly just shell-shocked from the experience. I'd been driving for all those hours and hours thinking like, what if there was one little detail wrong? What if there was one tiny detail wrong, and because of that, the whole thing is messed up. The whole thing is screwed, right? Obliterated, shattered. And those last few minutes watching the German people get exiled from that office definitely did not help. We got our visas. They were approved. We officially had a certain amount of time to pack up our stuff for real, figure out how we were going to get our cats to Spain, Daryl and Abby, and then go. And so we began to pack up our stuff. I was on Idealista, thanks to all the magical help from the company with all the hard work that they did pulling the top 5 search results from Idealista. I ended up finding this place that I am at right now because it was actually the cheapest place in the entire town, even though it was on the water. But yeah, I'll go for it. It's right on the ocean. Why not? And it's the cheapest choice. Let's do that. So we did. And then it was time to figure out how to get our cats out here. I don't know, you could call this step 4 now, is how we tried and inevitably failed to bring our cats to Spain. Now listen up here. Listen up here. Both the US and the European Union require pets that are traveling, specifically cats that are traveling, to have a rabies shot and a chip, right? Both of our cats had a rabies shot and a chip. However, only one of our cats was legally permitted to come to Europe. And the reason for this is because Daryl, our sweet chunky fluff boy, Daryl, who we rescued off the streets, he was a stray for years, who would just kind of hang out on our patio to cool off during the brutal Arizona summer heat, who we finally decided back in December. We were like, okay, even whether we're going to Spain or not, Daryl is not going to spend another summer out in that brutal heat. We're gonna take him in for real. And so we got him neutered and we got him a rabies shot. And then we kept him in for a couple days to make sure that he was okay, and then we let him go back outside, and he still would chill by us, He's zoinked out of his mind right now. The door's open for you. Yeah. If you want to go, the door's open for you. The whole world. I know, just go ahead. Good. But he was back outside, just neutered and with a rabies shot, right? And then finally, about a month later, we gave him some time to recover and rebuild trust in us, and then we just kind of closed the door and just took him in for real, right? And then after that happened and he was officially our cat, then we got him a chip. He's chipped. the other cat showed up around the same time that we were deciding to take in Daryl. Abby, I think he noticed that Daryl was spending more time inside, and I think he started to see that as an opportunity to expand more of his cat scent marking territory, and he started showing up more and more often, and he was straight up jealous of Daryl and started coming inside our house on his own, kind of walking around, just being all like, oh, look at me, don't pay attention to that one, and it jokes on him because we ended up just taking in both of them. And then for him, we got him his chip and his rabies shot on the same day. The chip first, in that order, and that order is what matters. Because in order for a cat to be allowed to go from the United States to the European Union, they have to have the chip first and then the rabies shot second, because the rabies shot has to be like logged inside of the coding or the database of the chip. We didn't know that. We didn't even know for sure that we were going to be taking Daryl in. He was vaccinated. He had his rabies shot and he had the chip, but the chip didn't have the rabies shot in his database because we went to just some random place and got him his rabies shot that way. And the vet told us this and was like, yeah, I think the US Department of Agriculture is not going to let you take Daryl to Europe. And that was very much an unfortunate shock. And so because of that, we had one cat that would be legally able to come to the Basque Country and one cat that would not. They said that they could give Daryl another rabies shot, but then, just in case he had an adverse reaction to the shot, he was legally required to quarantine inside for a month, and that would have messed up our schedule. We'd already bought our plane tickets, we already had our move-in date set, I already had the start date of my job set, so now we had to come to terms with the fact that no, we couldn't bring our cat. So we had to either give up on the whole journey or find someone to live in our place and watch over the cats for us while we were gone. And that's actually exactly what we ended up doing. My friend who does a lot of music and stuff with me, member of Humans by Day, Raccoons by Night, ended up being the one to take up the mantle. The cats already knew and loved him, and it would have been much less stress for just him to move in and just kind of assume our position in the same exact household and watch the cats living in the place that they were already living in than force them to, go move somewhere else. So he moved in to our place, and we got on a plane and said some extremely sad goodbyes temporarily to our cats. And to Arizona, we packed up all of our stuff, whatever small things we could have. Not too much, which is why my setup has been extremely jank lately compared to how it's been in previous years. I was not able to take, my entire setup, my entire interface. Everything has been much more jank and sketchy in terms of my technology. That's why I haven't made any new songs since I got here either. Because I don't have any of my music making equipment or any of that. And yeah, so we got on a long plane flight that took us from Phoenix to Atlanta the same day that there was that chemical plant explosion in Atlanta, so the whole airport was smelled like toxic gas and probably gave us 46 types of cancer. And then we flew from Atlanta over the ocean to Madrid, and then we got on another plane to Madrid that landed us in Bilbao, and suddenly, boom, we were in Spain. So, after a couple of days in an Airbnb, we finally officially moved into this place here on the ocean. What a glorious place. It's awesome. I love it. The neighbors are great. The owner of the place is pretty cool. There's a cat here, the Euskal Katua that I showed off during that one video. His name is Neo, and he likes to spend a lot of time with us. He's just kind of like the household cat. He just kind of roams between the various living spaces in this structure over the course of the day. Doesn't fill the void left behind from the fact that our cats are still in Arizona when they could have been here if not for a technicality. But yep, here we are. I had a couple days remaining until school started, and I had a lot of paperwork to do again in order to ensure that both Enya Shui and I could get our Spanish identification cards in time before the temporary aspect of the visa expired. So that was the journey that we had to be on from there. We moved in some of our stuff, got ourselves kind of settled in, and then I started at the school. Yeah, step 5. Arrive in Spain, settle down, and prepare for teaching at the school that you were paired with. Special thanks to the company that I was working with. Again, not gonna name which one. They did actually successfully get me to a school that existed. I can at least give them that. Though after all the paperwork I did, I couldn't imagine that it would have emotionally destroyed me anymore to just figure that part out myself too. Not salty at all. And yes, so I began at this school, which is a school for like 12 to 16-year-olds. It's like a public school, and it's in this the Basque public education system. Everyone there is like pretty much fluently bilingual in both Spanish and Basque, which is really cool. Like, you know, everyone's code switching constantly between Basque and Spanish depending on what's more convenient to say. All the signs out here are written in Basque and Spanish. A good amount of people speak English, but I already spoke Spanish, though my Spanish was Mexican Spanish, and I've actually faced a lot of judgment because of that. There's a little bit of that. Yeah, so the school's great. The school is fun. Teachers are cool. My schedule is very relaxed and flexible. But it's only like 14 hours a week, and the rest of the time is up to me to either, try and get money for my various creative projects or do tutoring, like one-on-one tutoring of English to various people out here, which it took me a while to get started on, but I'm finally doing some of that to get some extra cash. All the while, talking with the Spanish lawyer from earlier, getting our situation figured out, using another extremely convoluted and badly designed website to get our appointments at this police station down in Bilbao. I guess that's just how they handle official documents here. They always talk about like the police station like it's also just casually the place to go whenever you're dealing with official documents and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess that's just the norm out here. Lots of paperwork, lots of getting used to the flow of teaching things, you know, trying to get the students accustomed to my accent, because apparently my accent is very different from the British accent of the guy who was here the year before me. They at first found my American accent very difficult to understand, but nowadays they've definitely gotten used to it, or at least they're pretending that they've gotten used to it. Yeah, so it's a good time. I had an orientation where I got to meet several of the other English teachers in the Bilbao area, and I'm still friends with several of them, and so they're showing me a whole bunch of cool things to do around the area. Bilbao is a really cool city. I really freaking love Bilbao. Like, not only is like the giant Guggenheim Museum and that like cartoon looking bridge right in the center of the area making like it have really iconic kind of look, but the rest of the city is just like glorious. And all the food is so cheap. I could fill myself up on various pinchos and tortillas, and they're not like the tortillas that you think of in America. I'm talking Spanish tortillas. Those things are just god tier glorious. Holy crap. And just the various type of pinchos. I think my personal favorite is the gambas, which is like a bunch of pickled olives and vegetables and things like that, maybe sometimes with like some octopus and stuff on it. It's really dang good. It's really dang good. Also, smoked fish, glorious, absolutely legendary. Interestingly, like the best sushi I've ever had is like right here. And of course, the landscape out here is just absolutely legendary, right? Like, it's actually kind of how I imagine, like, the north ridge of the Fuanal Peninsula in my Jojawa Joror world to be. Just, like, rolling hills landscape leading to these big cliffs that just cliff. They just cliff right over into the ocean. It's like super aesthetic. There's like fog that comes out of the ocean. I get to see the giant barges and stuff out in the background, just like float and carry cargo, I guess, out to the Portugalete that leads to the Nervion River. It's absolutely aesthetic, glorious. It rains a lot, but that makes it green. And as a lifelong resident of the Phoenix area in Arizona, I am absolutely into it. I'll say as soon as I got rain boots, because before I had rain boots and my shoes were getting wet from the rain whenever I'd be walking to school, I would be miserable. But as soon as I got rain boots, life was smooth sailing. I'm totally okay with the rain. Though, every couple of weeks, there's a crazy storm that comes in called a coastal event. That's all the Spanish Weather Service labels it as, is a coastal event. Extremely cryptic and foreboding, and it's just like a massive wall of wind and rain that hits. I actually even saw like a water spout, like one of those ocean tornadoes out there a couple weeks ago. That was kind of crazy. We just finished up with a coastal event like 2 days ago, and the ocean is still like stirred up from it. It really causes some wild mayhem in there. Anyway, so yeah, got used to the whole teaching situation, got used to my living situation, started doing a lot more exercise, a lot more baseline exercise than I used to. I have definitely lost a good amount of weight in the past 4 months, but it was definitely hard getting into it in the beginning because out here at this place by the ocean with no access to public transportation unless I go down a mountain, up a mountain, and then back down a mountain to the train station, which is also right by where the school is. I'm doing way more, like probably 20 times more baseline daily walking than I did back in Arizona, which has done wonders for the toning on my calves and thighs. Yeah, it was hard to get used to at first, especially before I had the rain boots and I had to walk that whole journey in the pouring rain. That was not fun. And then we get to, what is it? I don't know. I don't even know. I'm not even counting. Step 6, get the actual Spanish ID card. So all that time passes. The appointment to go and get my Spanish ID card arrives. We go to this place with all of our paperwork, including a bunch of stuff, including like the FBI fingerprint background check, apostilled of The Hague, and all that stuff, various translated documents, etc., etc., etc. We go there, we give them the various paperwork, and they're like, okay, now you have to make another appointment and come back here in another month whenever we have your ID card ready. And then we're like, oh, are we approved? And they're like, I don't know, you'll find out. And it's like, okay, great, time to wait, stressed out for another month, but this time we're doing it in the Basque Country. And so we did. Meanwhile, I also had to, step 7, get a bank account functioning. I figured that there would have been like some system, since I'm like an international person, to just get my pay for like teaching like just wired to me or something, but no, I have to get an actual Spanish bank account, which, okay, no big deal, except in order to get a Spanish bank account, you have to be empadronado, which means you have to be like legally and officially signed up to a particular town. It's just like a requirement, and there has to be somebody else to sign off on it whenever you're like a foreigner in order to be declared that you actually do indeed live in the place that you're living, even if it's like an extremely temporary or even informal housing situation. I was told I didn't have to do that. The company told me, oh, no matter how many times people tell you that you have to be empadronado, just show them this little document. They had like a little document set up for us saying that, oh, you don't have to be empadronado because of like the type of visa or whatever it is, since you're an auxiliar de conversación. But no, the bank did not accept that document. They said, no, you do have to be empadronado. You have to go to the ayuntamiento or the udalechea to go pick up this empadronamiento document. And I went there with Enyeshue. We both went to go fill out our empadronamiento document. And then we tried to hand it to her, the clerk at the ayuntamiento, and she was like, oh, you have to get your landlord to sign off on this. So we're like, oh, okay. So we gave the document to the landlord. He was like, oh, no, you don't have to do this. I'll handle it behind the scenes. And he did. He actually did somehow just handle it behind the scenes, because he handed us a document like a week later, and he was like, okay, now you're empadronado. All right, and so we gave that document to the bank. The bank was like, okay, cool. Now your bank account is set up. And then I gave that bank account information to the Basque Education Department or whatever so that I could get my paycheck. And they're like, okay, cool. Looks like we got everything. We'll get you your paycheck in a couple of days. And then a month passes. Then they're like, oh, actually, we need like this one other document saying that you're not like a sex offender or whatever, and you should have gotten this months in advance. And I never received such a request from the company or from the consulate or anything like that, and I was very confused. And so I went and I did some digging, and I talked and I kind of complained to the company, and they were like, "Oh, no, just use your FBI background check, your apostille of the Hague background check, that qualifies." And so I submitted that to them, and I was like, "Oh, is that good?" And they're like, yeah, I think that'll be okay. You should have your pay in a couple of days." And then another month passes, and I've been asking them, and they just keep on ignoring me and ignoring me and ignoring me. And then finally, after ignoring like 10 messages I've been sending saying like, "Am I going to get paid? Like, do I have to leave?" Like, because I literally won't be able to stay here if I can't get paid. Like, like getting paid is a vital part of the plan for me being able to stay out here for a whole 9 months. Please tell me that you can get me paid. And they just kept on ignoring me and ignoring me and ignoring me. And then finally they got back to me and they said, "Oh yeah, you're right. I really doubted you, but you're right. The FBI background document, apostilled by The Hague and translated by a certified translator, does indeed qualify to show that you are not a sex offender." And then I got paid the next day. 2 months late. I love bureaucracy. I just love bureaucracy so much. When I see the bureaucracy, I just wanna go give it a big old smooch. Thank you, bureaucracy. I love you, bureaucracy. Let's run away together, bureaucracy. There's a place outside of Phoenix, Arizona that will be just right for us, bureaucracy. Step 8. Actually get the Spanish identification card. Finally, we got a notification 45 days later, which is the bare minimum. They told us you had to wait at least 45 days, and they actually gave us the notification on the 45th day that it would be okay to go over there. Well, I shouldn't say that the police station gave me the notification that it had been 45 days and that was the bare minimum and that I could go down there and make a new appointment to go and get my Spanish identification card. No. It was the lawyer told me. He said, "Oh yeah, just so you know, like, they're never going to tell you that they're not going to notify you that your ID card is ready." He just basically told me like, "Oh yeah, the baseline number of days that it takes for the ID card to be ready is 45 days. It will always take at least 45 days, and they'll only hold on to it for a total of 60 days before they throw it out and you have to go back and start it all over again, which isn't good because your visa only lasts another 30 days. So you have to go back there to that website, that horrifying website, make another appointment to go back there." Which was already backed up for like a week because the appointments start opening up the very first day of the month, and all the appointments for the month are usually set except for little tiny exceptions where people have canceled their appointments within hours. And so I just gave up and I said, "Hey, Mr. Lawyer, please just do this for me. Just get us this appointment. I'll pay you. Just get us the appointment." And so I did. I paid him like 30 euros each just to set the appointment for us, because every time we went on the website ourselves, it would just say there's no available appointments within the time period where you'd be legally allowed to go get the visa before the visa expires. And so he set up the appointment for us. We finally went down there another 10 or so days later with our temporary visa expiration date approaching with only like 15-ish days to go. And then we finally received our Spanish identification cards, and thus all was good with the world. Except for step 9. Get the bank to re-acknowledge that you exist, because now that you have all that official documentation in, they suddenly take your bank account from existing to put into a state of limbo because your documentation has changed. And they don't tell you why, they just tell you that you have to go to a bank to find out. And then I go to a bank to find out, and they have no idea. And they tell me to just don't use that bank account for a little while. We'll call you whenever we fix it. And then another like 2 weeks passes. They never call me. And I go back there. I ask them about it. And they're like, "Oh, yeah. Here, come here." And they open up my account and then they click one button. And they're like, "Okay, you're good." And then I was actually good. And so finally, I was in a state where I could truly and purely enjoy the Basque Country experience. Other than that, logistically, that pretty much takes us to today. I'm still out here. I'm still teaching English at this school. I'm doing private lessons. And I should probably mention I've been at least attempting to learn some Basque. And I've had actually like multiple teachers online with italki by now, but I don't know, I didn't really vibe with any of them. Most of them were just like having conversations and kind of wasting my time whenever I was already like extremely low on money. And so yep, I've got some textbooks and I found another teacher that's actually pretty good, and we're doing it. I'm gonna see. I don't know how much Basque I'm actually going to be like able to speak. I know I can read the signs and stuff in Basque pretty well now, right? Number one, because most of the root words in Basque, and I do literally mean like most of the root words in Basque, are Latin derived somehow, either straight up from the Roman era or from the Spanish era or somewhere in between. So a lot of the root words are very recognizable. And then after that, for at least like the nouns and adjectives and a lot of the verbs too, it's just a matter of putting together the various morphemes as like suffixes and sometimes prefixes and stuff onto there. It's just the main auxiliary verbs, which are just absolutely brutal to try and get memorized. So that's why, like, you know, when I'm reading stuff, I can overall get the big picture. But I could say some fun like noun phrases in Basque, but I panic whenever I get to those auxiliary verbs still, so I really don't know how good I am going to be at Basque by the time I'm out of here. But at least I know a whole lot about Basque now, and a lot about the Basque culture as I've been getting myself more and more engrossed with this, and, you know, living with, you know, Basque people, Basque speaking people, being around people who are fluent in the Basque language constantly. It's like super cool. So even if I don't actually end up like, you know, getting good enough to start a Basque conversation with someone on my own, at least I know a lot about it, and I've had like a really good cultural immersion experience. I've got like 3 or 4 months left here, and again, even if I don't get super good, this has been like a glorious cultural immersion situation here. I love the Basque Country. If it wasn't so expensive, and if I could, like, I don't know, get a work visa to actually try and stay here, maybe I would, because it is just awesome. The quality of life is glorious. The fact that there's public transportation, like a metro that I could just get on with my Barik card and just like be able to go either to Plencia over on the other end or into the deepest like corridors of the city of Bilbao and beyond, and the Alsa bus network at the Bilbao Intermodal station that I could just, like, you know, get a ticket last minute to go to like any city in the region just on a casual bus for not too much money, and, you know, be able to survive perfectly fine just by walking, taking the train, and just not having a car at all. Absolutely legendary. I am loving that. It's going to be very difficult to come back to the 105% car-centric infrastructure of the Phoenix area. Yeah. But I have much to come back to there, so I will be going back. I must. I am still truly an Arizonan, Sonoran desert, totally not a wastelander at heart, and so I shall be returning. But I'm going to thoroughly enjoy this Basque Country experience while I still have it, and try, if I have enough money, to try and go do some traveling to other various regions around here. So viewers, if any of you are in the Basque Country and you want to do like an IRL meetup or something, yeah, let's do it, because there's convenient public transport here and I could just go somewhere easily. Wow. And it doesn't cost me any gas. It only costs me the amount to click my little card on the Barik button at the station and I could just go. Holy crap. Wow. Can't have something that smart in Phoenix. God damn it. Anyway, thanks so much to the Ngatrons and YouTube members for supporting these wacky antics. Thanks for the people who donated during the Cursed Conlang Circus, and thanks to the few people who watched those 2 little non-videos that I put out during Bad Algorithm Month. Probably still no new songs coming out for a while, unless I go through with my idea that I had to just make like a series of demos called No Equipment, No Good Microphone, Just Keyboard and DAW, and just like release some just like early Dylan Brady-esque, just like kind of weird stuff with shitty audio quality. prepare for some cursed stuff. There's a lot of cursed, wacky things coming, and there's nothing you could do to stop it, but you could definitely speed it up by becoming a matron, I guess. Yeah. Alright, Nut is out. Goodbye.